Selected one. Pause for a moment and let this truth enter your spirit. You're not like the others, and you've known it all along. The struggles you've carried in silence, the tears hidden behind closed doors, the weight that nearly crushed you, none of it was wasted. Every scar became shaping. Every trial became training. Every storm etched wisdom into your soul. That's why when you walk into a room, people notice something different. It's not just your presence. It's the mark of heaven on your life. Being close to you is no ordinary thing. It's a privilege. The book of Proverbs tells us in chapter 4, verse 7, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting get understanding." Those words are alive in you right now. You haven't just grown stronger, you've grown wiser. Where others see only chaos, you've learned to discern patterns. Where others stumble, your eyes recognize design. That wisdom is your crown, invisible to some, undeniable to heaven. Think of a key maker. Every cut into the metal looks like damage, but those sharp edges are what make the key able to open the door. That's you. Every wound, every breaking, every cut in your journey has been carving you into the exact shape needed to unlock what others cannot. Even Elon Musk, a man who has faced rejection, ridicule, and impossibility, understands this truth. The shaping seasons are never wasted. They are the preparation for impact. His words echo God's whisper over your life. You are chosen. You are set apart. You are ready. The door would never be unlocked. You are that. The locked doors, the betrayals, the prayerless evenings. You weren't being destroyed by them. You were being shaped into the key that would unlock doors that others couldn't. Allow me to tell you about one selected individual. They were ignored for years, wondering why chances were lost. Pals were promoted, doors kept shutting, and silence was their constant companion. However, as they waited, they developed their ability to listen more intently, see with spiritual eyes, and separate fact from fiction. The hush ended one day. A door that was only for them opened, and it all made sense. Wisdom's classroom was the waiting room. Right now, the same unfolding is taking place in your life. Selected one. Don't back down. People will evaluate you negatively if they don't comprehend your trip. They can even feel jealous of you. However, keep in mind that their being in your presence is a privilege. Because of what you carry, not because of who you are by yourself. You stabilize chaos. You bring light into the dark. You serve as a reminder that the devout still get crowns from God. Your journey is not arbitrary. It's planned. Intention is weaved into every aspect. Even the errors, setbacks, and disappointments are only strands in a bigger picture that you are yet unable to completely comprehend. But the pattern will be exposed eventually. Then you'll see why things had to be this way. Now, this is a call to action as well. Don't allow this word stay mute if it speaks to your soul. Spread the word so that someone else who is lost might find their way back to strength. Tap like to show that you've decided to walk with courage and wisdom. Sign up to ensure you don't miss the stream of uplifting messages that are intended to keep you going. And if this message resonates deeply with you, post a comment with a number 111. Let it serve as your prophetic proclamation that you choose to live as one set apart, that you choose to ascend, and that you choose knowledge. This is only the start. The best is yet to come, and the narrative is far from over. Listen, chosen one. You are entering a new rhythm where you will be positioned and protected by knowledge. Everything around you is changing. At first, it's subtle, like the tide changing. Momentum is replacing what seemed like resistance. What seemed to be locked doors would soon be shown as divine rerouting. Because your destiny is independent of the systems of the world cannot define you. Think of yourself as a light in a pitch-black space. As soon as the flame is ignited, shadows move. That is the purpose of your existence. Disperse the darkness wherever you go. The brightness will attract some. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. No one will be able to ignore it, although some will find it unpleasant. Because of this, a chosen one's presence is never inconspicuous. Prayers have been answered in you. No one ever dared to pray out loud. Thus, raise your head, walk steadily, and accept the crown that is awaiting you. You're not concealed. You're getting ready. And soon, opportunity will meet your preparedness in a manner that makes no question. Like this selected one, you are picked for this particular moment. You are all too familiar with the burden of seemingly unending evenings. There were nights when your mind toyed with questions that had no answers and quiet became louder than thunder. I refer to this time of year as the night of broken things. It's where friendships fall apart, where vows are broken, and where you're left with pieces you didn't ask for. But your power is really created here in this terrible in-between. Every restless moment has served as a lesson. In the secret book of your fate, every tear has written its own chapter. The suffering you've endured is proof of shaping rather than desertion. Similar to clay in a potter's hands, you have been compressed, sculpted, and perhaps crushed before being strengthened and rebuilt. Even if they are dispersed, your life's pieces are not wasted. God is a mosaic artist who creates beauty out of what is broken. In David's holy hymns, the psalmist once wrote, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and delivers those who are crushed in spirit," according to Psalms 34, verse 18. Poetry is more than just these words. They reflect your narrative back to you. When you felt most alone, that's when God was closest to you. His proximity was the unseen thread that kept you together during the nights when everything crumbled. One story comes to mind: the path taken by a chosen one who had experienced treachery so severe that it seemed like a knife piercing the soul. Their most ardent critic became their closest friend, and the reverberation of once truthful words turned into arrows pointed directly at their heart. It felt intolerable at first. However, the selected one found the secret power of prayer amid that gloom, the sort that waits with shaky trust and doesn't expect answers right away. The same thing that fostered perseverance was that betrayal, and eventually, what seemed to be devastation turned out to be guidance. Your shattered nights have been helping you with that. You could not have grown resilient in comfort if they hadn't been sowing the seeds. Perseverance is a language that comfort never imparts. Only hardship can do that, and you are proficient in the one you have selected. Now imagine broken glass on the floor. It seemed unsafe and pointless. However, those pieces may be melted, molded, and made into something more exquisite than they were in the beginning by the appropriate people. That's your tale. The things that have been broken in your life will not stay broken. Only you'll be able to carry it through these nights, as it will be reforged into something more powerful and dazzling. You could have questioned why God said nothing. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. Absence is not silence. Silence is often a tactic. Heaven sometimes silences itself so you can find the answers that are already ingrained in you, just as a teacher does when you're taking an exam. When no sign emerges, you have been learning to walk by faith, to trust your spirit, and to listen to the whisper rather than the storm. The mystery is right here. The things that hurt you have also turned into your distinguishing characteristics. People can't convey the tales you carry. You have suffered in ways that others cannot comprehend, and you have authority because of that history. You won't talk like someone who has just read about the valley. You'll talk like someone who has been through it and made it through. In the aftermath of brokenness, even today, you are becoming stronger. The ability to not only stand, but to remain unflinching while others collapse. The fortitude to confront storms with the calm eyes of someone who has previously seen much. The darkness is frightened by your might because it knows you won't bend. Your shattered nights are not to be hated. They weren't penalties. They were authorizations. Authorization to expand. Permission to recover. Permission to change into the person who is ready to take on a bigger role. Your narrative doesn't stop with a night of shattered items. It is the ground on which your future grows. Remember this reality, chosen one. Your vessel's cracks are not defects to be embarrassed about. They are locations where God's light is evident. Additionally, people won't see you as weak when they see you. They will see imperfection revealing splendor. That is your calling's contradiction. Your injuries serve as your eyewitness. With wounds that speak of survival and knowledge carved by fire, you are emerging from the darkness. You are now indestructible because of the same thing that once shattered you. Selected one. There comes a time when the things that have been accumulating inside of you become too much for quiet to hold. That's when your bones start to burn with holy frustration. You have stood in the shadows, suffered delays, and borne wounds. Something more profound is stirring now, however. It is the crackling of destiny as it erupts into flame, the awakening of purpose. You're not just surviving anymore. They're burning you up. It's not the type of fire that devours you. The fire is the purifier, the sort that removes the untrue and leaves just the everlasting. Imagine gold in a furnace. The temperature rises. Under pressure, the metal screams, but contaminants are carried away after rising to the surface. That's what you're going through at the moment. You can tell there is a fire at work by the pressure you feel. This exact incident was originally recounted by the ancient prophet Jeremiah, announcing in his prophecy scroll, verse 9 of chapter 20. His message burns brightly in my heart. I felt a fire go out in my bones. I'm tired of suppressing it. Yes, I am unable to. That's your narrative, isn't it, Ming? You have made an effort to conceal your brightness and to become smaller in order to ease the discomfort of others. However, it is no longer possible to conceal the word, the summoning, or the fire. Your soul burns Luda every time you remain mute. Heaven propels you forward each time you take a step back. Consider the pulling back of a bowstring. The stress becomes almost intolerable. Do you think the string will break? However, the arrow will fly further once it is released the more it is pulled. You are the selected arrow. The stress before the launch is merely the result of your life's setbacks, delays, disappointments, and unanswered prayers. And before you know it, the release will arrive, and you will fly toward the goal that has been set for you from birth. Your cooperation with this fire has power. When earth speaks, heaven answers. For this reason, I'm asking you to make a statement in the comment section right now. Make me shine. This is more than simply words in M's opinion. Consider it a prophetic gesture. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. You are announcing to heaven that you will no longer stifle your flame as you write it. Remember that fire does not apologize for blazing. You are declaring, I choose to be set ablaze. I choose to burn with purpose. I choose to carry the fire that will not go out. And as you declare it, expect the atmosphere around you to shift. It shines without asking permission, and a heavenly light is carried by you, chosen one. That darkness is unquenchable. What lights your path today will likewise illuminate the way for those who are still wandering in the darkness. The fire is only getting started. Furthermore, it cannot be halted once it begins. Selected one, I'll be straightforward. The fire inside you has always been flickering. However, it has now gotten to the point where it must be seen. This fire is not passion gone wild. It is a divine mission. It conveys guidance. It entails self-control. You are not requesting a casual spark when you say, light me up. You are requesting complete availability, complete yielding, and complete surrender to the heavenly flame. Consider Moses' experience at the burning bush. The shrub was not consumed by the fire. It did, however, burn bright enough to draw notice. This holy flame causes you to accomplish just that. It doesn't ruin your identity. It shows your true self, your voice, your scars, your individuality. In the fire, everything is lit. You become noticeable because God Himself shines through you, not because of your own power. The underlying reality is as follows. Fire spreads. People around you can't stay the same when you let yourself burn with passion and calling. You will inspire bravery in those who are afraid. You will inspire trust in those who are drowning in uncertainty. You will rekindle hope in those who had given up. This is why responding rather than resisting is so important. You are not alone in the flame. It's for the people that are involved in your life. Don't shrink back, then. Don't wait and don't apologize. This is the end of the season of indecision. The igniting moment has come. Believe it, live it, and speak it. Light me up is more than just a remark. It's a covenant. Heaven hears it. Earth will see it. And once you completely enter the fire that is waiting for you, your life will never be the same. Selected 1. There is a purpose to the fire that has been brewing within of you. Without direction, fire may spread and devour. However, fire that is strategically directed becomes unstoppable. Heaven doesn't take your fate lightly. A secret plot is gradually coming to fruition. God has already devised a plan that outmaneuvers everyone, even when it seems like there is no way forward, when your foes are hiding in the shadows and your doubts are rising like smoke. This tactic isn't always apparent or loud. It often manifests as a notion, a whisper, an impression, or an epiphany that was previously absent. You have to listen and lean in because of this. The peaceful little voice is intended to be drowned out by the world's cacophony. Those who are selected, however, are able to recognize the distinction. You are being trained to respond precisely rather than in a panic. Chapter 19, verse 12 of the first book of Kings serves as a reminder. In a fire after the earthquake. However, the flames did not contain the Lord. In a quiet little voice after the flames. Well, God has been leading you in this manner. It's not always through thunder, through the voice that resides in the silent corners of your soul, rather than constantly through show. Recall the instances when you almost made a poor decision. You had a gut instinct to stop, wait, and think again. It was a covert tactic. You believed it to be hesitancy, but heaven was stepping in. Think about a chess master's style. It seems to the inexperienced eye that parts are being sacrificed arbitrarily. However, the master anticipates 10 movements. Pawns might fall, knights may change positions, but each move is a component of a bigger strategy that the opposition cannot predict. God has been directing your path in this manner. Not every loss was a loss. They were calculated actions in a larger scheme. A selected one formerly had to deal with ongoing disappointments, missed chances, strained relationships, and closed doors. Life seemed to be falling apart to them. Years later, however, they realized that every door they had locked had kept them from being associated with the wrong people, places, or tasks. In retrospect, the tactic was ideal, but it was concealed at the time. Your path is now being shaped by the same type of invisible genius. Delay is not the same as denial. Silence is not the same as absence. The whisper is effective. The plan is taking shape. It's also accurate. Although your adversaries may be making fun of you right now because they believe they are ahead of you, strategy will soon put an end to their teasing. Their own demise will result from the same traps they created. Recall the terms found in the book of Proverbs. The wicked are often caught in the net intended for the pious. Every war doesn't have to be fought loudly, because God has already shifted the odds in your favor. Certain wins are achieved in quiet. Imagine a river that flows to a boulder after rounded. The river knows better than to believe that opposition has halted the flow. It only curls, bends, and keeps going. Unstoppable. That's how your life plan works. You're not blocked by obstacles. They reroute you until you discover the precise route that has been set for you. This time of year calls both patience and focus. Timing is more important in strategy than speed. A sprint is not being prepared for you. You're receiving endurance training. And when the time is right, your actions will be so in harmony with divine timing that even the tiniest action will produce remarkable outcomes. Hold on to this truth, chosen one. You're not just aimlessly walking. They're leading you precisely. Have faith in the whisper. Pay attention to the nudge. Pay attention to the small change. Because you will walk with clarity that comes from the calm voice of heaven, while others are engulfed by noise. The plan has already been drafted. The only issue is whether you'll have enough faith in it to follow your decision. The purpose of strategy is not to appease the emotions. Its purpose is to fortify the soul. For this reason, it often seems strange, even uncomfortable. You are being guided down routes that don't first seem to be successful. However, each step is bringing you closer to a result that is far better than what you could create on your own. So walk with a firm determination. When others ask for evidence, you will rely on your faith. You will lean toward whispers while others are trying to make noise. And when the time is perfect, the secret plan will come to pass so precisely that even your adversaries will acknowledge that it was only God's hand directing you the whole time. Every great destiny is put to the proof in the furnace of trials. Chosen one. You have experienced the heat, miscommunications, disappointments, and unanticipated losses. These were intended to temper you, not to ruin you. You are being shaped into something indestructible, something with weight and power, just as fire turns iron into steel. Without the battle and the testing, the crown would rest too easily. You are unable to stand firmly. Scripture serves as a reminder in James' epistle, chapter 1, verse 2. Think of it as pure delight. Every time you encounter difficulties of any type, my brothers and sisters, remember that endurance is a result of putting your faith to the test. This exhortation is not meant to be taken lightly. It is in order to see your difficulties in a new light, what you refer to as pain. Heaven demands that you become ready. That's what you call a delay. Development is a summons from above. You've been hammered into form by every scorching season you've experienced. Consider the forge used by the blacksmith. Until it's burned, the raw metal piece seems normal. It becomes pliable there due to the extreme heat. The hammer repeatedly hits to create rather than shatter. It's an unpleasant, filthy, and noisy procedure. But in the end, a sharp, gleaming sword appears. That's what you are becoming into. Every strike has a reason. Every flame has a purpose. It's not ruining you. They're refining you. This is the bit that is often overlooked, however. A dull blade is never used in combat by a warrior. Furthermore, no monarch dons an untried crown. You shouldn't be ashamed of your scars. They serve as evidence that you have been tried and shown to be trustworthy. They serve as a quiet testament to your ability to bear burdens that others cannot. Let me speak softly yet plainly now, selected one. There's more to this trip we are on together than just words. It involves creating, maintaining, and disseminating messages that touch people's hearts everywhere. Delivering these words is a process that goes through its own fire, much as how hardships purify you. It requires finances, time, prayer, and effort. This is the point at which you may physically participate in the narrative. If you have been blessed by these words, think of stitching back as an offering rather than a duty. See it as rain on a field. Crops may be grown in the field without rain. Soil hardens. No matter how little your contribution is, it keeps this message alive like raindrops, reaching those who continue to stray amid their shattered evenings. It's like dangling candles in the darkness when you spread this word by hitting like, share, and subscribe. One lantern may illuminate a narrow walkway. God has already devised a plan that outmaneuvers everyone, even when it seems like there is no way forward, when your foes are hiding in the shadows and your doubts are rising like smoke. This tactic isn't always apparent or loud. It often manifests as a notion, a whisper, an impression, or an epiphany that was previously absent. You have to listen and lean in because of this. The peaceful little voice is intended to be drowned out by the world's cacophony. Those who are selected, however, are able to recognize the distinction. You are being trained to respond precisely rather than in a panic. Chapter 19, verse 12 of the first book of Kings serves as a reminder, and a fire after the earthquake. However, the flames did not contain the Lord, and a quiet little voice after the flames. Well, God has been leading you in this manner. It's not always through thunder, through the voice that resides in the silent corners of your soul, rather than constantly through show. Recall the instances when you almost made a poor decision. You had a gut instinct to stop, wait, and think again. It was a covert tactic. You believed it to be hesitancy, but heaven was stepping in. Think about a chess master's style. It seems to the inexperienced eye that parts are being sacrificed arbitrarily. However, the master anticipates 10 movements. Pawns might fall, knights may change positions, but each move is a component of a bigger strategy that the opposition cannot predict. God has been directing your path in this manner. Not every loss was a loss. They were calculated actions in a larger scheme. A selected one formerly had to deal with ongoing disappointments, missed chances, strained relationships, and closed doors. Life seemed to be falling apart to them. Years later, however, they realized that every door they had locked had kept them from being associated with the wrong people, places, or tasks. In retrospect, the tactic was ideal, but it was concealed at the time. Your path is now being shaped by the same type of invisible genius. Delay is not the same as denial. Silence is not the same as absence. The whisper is effective. The plan is taking shape. It's also accurate. Although your adversaries may be making fun of you right now because they believe they are ahead of you, strategy will soon put an end to their teasing. Their own demise will result from the same traps they created. Recall the terms found in the book of Proverbs. The wicked are often caught in the net intended for the pious. Every war doesn't have to be fought loudly. Because God has already shifted the odds in your favor, certain wins are achieved in quiet. Imagine a river that flows to a boulder after round it. The river knows better than to believe that opposition has halted the flow. It only curls, bends, and keeps going. Unstoppable. That's how your life plan works. You're not blocked by obstacles. They reroute you until you discover the precise route that has been set for you. This time of year calls both patience and focus. Timing is more important in strategy than speed. A sprint is not being prepared for you. You're receiving endurance training. And when the time is right, your actions will be so in harmony with divine timing that even the tiniest action will produce remarkable outcomes. Hold on to this truth, chosen one. You're not just aimlessly walking. They're leading you precisely. Have faith in the whisper. Pay attention to the nudge. Pay attention to the small change. Because you will walk with clarity that comes from the calm voice of heaven, while others are engulfed by noise. The plan has already been drafted. The only issue is whether you'll have enough faith in it to follow your decision. The purpose of strategy is not to appease the emotions. Its purpose is to fortify the soul. For this reason, it often seems strange, even uncomfortable. You're being guided down routes that don't first seem to be successful. However, each step is bringing you closer to a result that is far better than what you could create on your own. So walk with a firm determination. When others ask for evidence, you will rely on your faith. You will lean toward whispers while others are trying to make noise. And when the time is perfect, the secret plan will come to pass so precisely that even your adversaries will acknowledge that it was only God's hand directing you the whole time. Every great destiny is put to the proof in the furnace of trials, chosen one. You have experienced the heat, miscommunications, disappointments, and unanticipated losses. These were intended to temper you, not to ruin you. You're being shaped into something indestructible, something with weight and power, just as fire turns iron into steel. Without the battle and the testing, the crown would rest too easily. You were unable to stand firmly. Scripture serves as a reminder in James' Epistle, chapter 1, verse 2. Think of it as pure delight. Every time you encounter difficulties of any type, my brothers and sisters, remember that endurance is a result of putting your faith to the test. This exhortation is not meant to be taken lightly. It is in order to see your difficulties in a new light, what you refer to as pain. Heaven demands that you become ready. That's what you call a delay. Development is a summons from above. You've been hammered into form by every scorching season you've experienced. Consider the forge used by the blacksmith. Until it is burned, the raw metal piece seems normal. It becomes pliable there due to the extreme heat. The hammer repeatedly hits to create rather than shatter. It's an unpleasant, filthy, and noisy procedure. But in the end, a sharp, gleaming sword appears. That's what you are becoming into. Every strike has a reason. Every flame has a purpose. It's not ruining you. They're refining you. This is the bit that is often overlooked, however. A dull blade is never used in combat by a warrior. Furthermore, no monarch dons an untried crown. You shouldn't be ashamed of your scars. They serve as evidence that you have been tried and shown to be trustworthy. They serve as a quiet testament to your ability to bear burdens that others cannot. Let me speak softly yet plainly now, selected one. There's more to this trip we are on together than just words. It involves creating, maintaining, and disseminating messages that touch people's hearts everywhere. Delivering these words is a process that goes through its own fire, much as how hardships purify you. It requires finances, time, prayer, and effort. This is the point at which you may physically participate in the narrative. If you've been blessed by these words, think of stitching back as an offering rather than a duty. See it as rain on a field. Crops may be grown in the field without rain. Soil hardens. No matter how little your contribution is, it keeps this message alive like raindrops, reaching those who continue to stray amid their shattered evenings. It's like dangling candles in the darkness when you spread this word by hitting like, share, and subscribe. One lantern may illuminate a narrow walkway. Without realizing you have an underground conduit, they organize soldiers for the crest, unaware that the river would root through caves they never thought about. They construct nets to control its flow. Their error in judgment goes beyond simple ignorance. It's spiritual blindness. They are unable to sense the underground springs that keep you alive or the roots that support you. On evenings when few others were around, you were secretly fostered. Hidden waters nurtured your soul to ensure that you would produce fruit that could not be taken. The master gardener grafted fresh rootstock into your existence in quiet after your name had gone from the discourse. The act itself just highlights the extent of the enemy's error when they believe they have taken away your future. With the intention of cutting you down, they have trimmed you. However, God forced deeper rooted via the trimming. I recall a selected one whose closest rival used private business strategies to launch campaign after campaign defamation. Discreet exclusions in social groups. Doors slammed, and people nodded and watched. The selected one seemed feeble. Then something unexpected occurred. Their best witness was a former critic. A bigger chamber was revealed via a closed door. A seemingly completed project was revived on a scale that no one had planned. The timing of the adversary was perfect. However, so was God's remedy. What the adversary planned to cause controversy, God became a testimonies. They made the mistake of assuming that the season of hiding would be the last one. Imagine a wasp buzzing frantically while confined in a glass container. The wasp battles the walls and becomes agitated, believing that the world stops at the edge. However, the invisible hand raises the jar and places it in a location where it can no longer damage the hive. Or image armor made in a hidden forge that is hammered in the dark and cooled in a subterranean spring rather than in the open square. Because the scout couldn't see their preparation, the person wearing the secret armor escapes unharmed when the conflict begins. Because they depend on what they can imitate and control, enemies make mistakes in their calculations. They try to mimic your voice, mimic your movements, and mimic your habits, but they fail to see that it's your presence, not just your patterns, that makes you unique. They are able to mimic a gesture. However, they are unable to replicate the anointing that results from your choice to remain while everyone else would run. The humble stance is another that confuses assailants. The adversary is deprived of fuel when you choose quiet over show and refuse to pose for the audience. Pride requires a viewership. All that is required for a true calling is obedience. Therefore, your calm faithfulness undermines their basis while they spread their rumors and create tales that seem plausible. The strength of a heart that perseveres without praise is beyond their comprehension. Keep the law of reversal in mind. Secretly sown seeds often bear fruit for the public, unaware that the root has already penetrated far enough to withstand storms, fires, and droughts. The adversary believes the partially buried seed will never grow into a tree. They are spiritually blind in their calculation. They expect instant profits. God works throughout generations. Therefore, don't be alarmed when secrets are revealed or when rumors get more loud. Panic is evident in their loudness. Their activity often indicates the imminence of a harvest. When your opponents put in twice as much work, it usually indicates that you are closer than you realize. Maintain a steady heartbeat. Allow your sight to see beyond the obvious. Because they are unable to discern the deeper narrative that is woven underneath your footsteps, the opponent makes mistakes in their calculations. The secret rivers, the grafting, the covenant. Believe in the invisible work. Their poor judgment will eventually prove to be your strength. And what they intended to hurt, you will become the foundation of your success. Selected one. Amidst the cacophony, silence has the ability to reveal hidden gems. Gifts start to appear at those quiet times of the year when you feel ignored, invisible, and maybe even forgotten. They first seem brittle, like delicate shoots emerging from the ground. However, these are really strengths you were unaware you had. These unspoken talents show themselves in the haven of silence rather than in the din of acknowledgement. Romans chapter 12, verse 6 serves as a reminder from the Bible. Depending on the grace bestowed upon us, every one of us has unique talents. Finish the quote. This elegance is usually intentional, yet isn't necessarily ostentatious or glitzy. It meets you right where you are and gives you the tools you need to do things that others can't. The keys to the doors that only you are supposed to open are your secret talents. Think about how many times you have gone through seasons that eliminated distractions. You could have lamented the loss at those times, the support, the opportunity, the cheers. But room was made available with every defeat. That void turned into the soil from which gifts may eventually grow. To shrink, you didn't lose. To create space, you lost. Years of obscurity were previously endured by a chosen one. Their participation in meetings was minimal, their voice was quiet, and they were often disregarded. But during the silent times when no one else was there, they worked on strong words, wrote introspective notebooks, and prayed more earnestly. The honing of a sword was what seemed to be unimportant. The talent had been uncovered long before it only waited for its assigned time. And when the time for its presentation finally arrived, that once quiet voice rocked a whole room with truth and clarity. The magic of secret seasons lies in that. They discover what would be buried by applause. Busy commotion would drown out the gems they uncover. The traits that cannot be replicated have been carved out in a workshop by your silence. Perseverance, fortitude, inventiveness, and insight. Imagine a pearl. Underneath the serene exterior, a wealth of power is developing. It starts off as an annoyance, a sand particle stuck inside an oyster, abandoned out of sight. Layer by layer, that grain is gradually transformed into something valuable. Nobody keeps an eye on the procedure. The oyster's perseverance goes unapplauded. However, a precious gem eventually emerges. That's your path. What irritated you and pushed on you while you were alone has been changing into something beautiful. Outsiders have yet to witness or imagine a sculptor working with marble. The sculptor sees what is within the stone, which seems unaltered and dead. With each deliberate stroke of the chisel, the form within is revealed as what does not belong is removed. There was always the statue. All that was needed to expose it was the quiet of patience. Layer by layer, you are that sculpture being revealed. Over time, the inside masterwork became visible. To hate quiet is to be dangerous. Silence is often a haven, yet many see it as punishment or evidence of insignificance. It teaches you to listen in a new way, to sense the spirit's tiny changes, and to appreciate the whisper above the roar without becoming silent. Your gift would stay hidden, drowned out by incessant chatter. Select one, then reflect. When no one else was looking, how many times did you learn anything new about yourself? You could have come to the realization that you were stronger than you had anticipated, that thoughts sprang to life in the absence of an audience, or that words flowed from your heart when no one was expecting them. These weren't coincidences. They were grace-filled insights. Anatha's secret talents. It's possible that enemies believed that quiet would destroy you. It's possible that many thought your silent period was a sign of failure. But your creative womb was stillness. The room where treasures have grown will shortly be unveiled. It's not a show during the unveiling. It has to do with service. Silently discovered gifts are seldom given for selfish reasons. When your voice rises, they are given to lead, heal, and enlighten. When your creativity is flowing, it will be for change rather than praise. It will be for freedom rather than glory. Your power will be shown for a cause rather than out of pride. Therefore, don't hate the silence. Don't curse the delay. Gifts are growing in silence. Riches are emerging from secret places, and you are being filled. And the world won't be able to dispute what has been disclosed when the time comes. Keep your mouth shut for the time being. In it, cherish it. Your offerings are like breaking dirt. Soon, What has been concealed will be revealed. And when it is, it will be far more significant than you could have ever anticipated. Selected 1. The link between fulfillment and calling is discipline. Few people brave the daily training that turns their talents into weapons of light, despite the fact that many are talented. It is impossible to hold a crown without simultaneously bearing the burden of regularity, rhythm, and order. This is where your journey's foundation is formed by mystic discipline and divine routines. Scripture reminds us of this in chapter 9, verse 27 of the first epistle to the Corinthians. However, I control and discipline my body, lest I be disqualified myself after preaching to others. These are not just phrases about physical prowess. They have to do with body, mind, and spirit alignment. Before you can govern anything else, discipline teaches you to rule yourself. Gifts could disperse like sparks in the wind without it. It turns presence into a regulated flame that illuminates the way clearly. Imagine an archer. The arrow is sharp and the bow is powerful, but the hands are unsteady. The shot will never hit its target. The steady hand represents discipline. Visible triumphs are made possible by the invisible power. You're pulling the bow string tighter and aiming more precisely when you wake early to pray, fast covertly, and fight the temptation to give in. Once, there was a chosen one who yearned for power. Their habits were dispersed, but their words were fiery. They blazed brightly in spurts for years before swiftly fading into quiet. Their fire only became constant when they accepted the rhythm of discipline. They set aside time each day for biblical quiet. They taught their hearts every day to talk gently and listen before speaking. Once unstable, it became unbreakable. A jail is not discipline. It's liberty. One day, the musician who practices scales nonstop will be able to improvise fearlessly. When the actual fight occurs, the soldier who practices repeatedly acts instinctively. Similarly, you're being coached to respond wisely even while under duress. Consider a garden devoid of rhythm. Weeds suffocate the soil, but with consistent care, watering, trimming, planting, the crop grows. Your tending is discipline. Although it doesn't seem spectacular right now, the fruit will eventually surprise even you. Imagine a lighthouse keeper instead. To ignite the flame, they ascend the steps night after night. No cheers from the crowd. Nobody observes the insignificant deed. Ships would crash without it, however. Life is saved by that invisible constancy. That everyday igniting of the flame is analogous to your spiritual routines. One that is quiet, repeated, yet has a profound influence. Your power lies in consistent rhythms rather than large movements. And in order to cement this moment, heaven is requesting your consent today. Make a public announcement. Oh, this is more than simply a sentence. Comment, keep me steady. It's a commitment. It is a prophetic act that says, I choose the path of daily discipline. I will not allow my fire to burn out in bursts. I will stay steady until my gifts bear their full fruit. By writing it, you are anchoring your spirit to a choice bigger than emotion. You are binding yourself to the rhythm of endurance. Remember, the ones who change history are not always the loudest, but the most consistent. You're called to be among them. So, set your heart to daily obedience. Cultivate sacred habits and let discipline shape your destiny into something unstoppable. Chosen one, when you type the words, keep me steady, you are not simply repeating after me. You're making a declaration to yourself to heaven, and even to the storms that try to shake you. These 3 short words carry layers of meaning. First, it is a prayer. You are asking God to hold your steps firm when distractions pull at you. Life is full of sudden winds, temptations, disappointments, betrayals alone. You might stumble, but with divine steadiness, even the strongest wind cannot uproot you. Each time you whisper or write this phrase, you are inviting God's hand to strengthen your grip on destiny. Second, it is a choice. Steadiness is not given only. It is chosen by commenting. You remind yourself that discipline is not about perfection, but persistence. Even if you fall, steadiness means rising again, not quitting. It is saying I will continue building even on days when no one claps, even when no one sees. And third, it is a banner for others. When someone scrolling by sees your words, they may recognize their own weakness and find courage to endure. Your steady declaration becomes a lighthouse for another weary traveler without realizing it. Your consistency plants courage in another heart. So let this not be casual typing. Let it be covenant. Each letter becomes a stone in the foundation of your future. And when storms come, and they will, you will stand, unshaken, because you already declared, keep me steady. In Chosen One, the time of preparation is giving way to the time of movement. You have carried the lessons of silence, dish, and trials like treasures hidden within. But now the whisper is clear. It is time to act. This is not reckless action, not a leap born of panic, but a measured step guided by strategy. The first offensive move is not about striking wildly. It is about walking in alignment with the strength you now carry. The scriptures remind us in the book of Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This is not suggestion. It is command. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk forward while fear lingers at your side. Courage is faith in motion. And in this season, courage is what will separate those who hesitate from those who step into the river and see it part before them. Think of a warrior standing before a battlefield. Behind them is safety, familiar ground, the comfort of routine. Ahead is risk, uncertainty, the roar of enemies. Yet the warrior knows that the first step forward is what activates destiny. That is you, chosen one. The moment you shift from waiting to acting, the unseen armies of heaven align with your movement. This first move may not look grand. Sometimes it is as small as a word spoken, an apology made, a door knocked on, a prayer lifted in boldness. Small actions, when taken in faith, ripple into eternity. The seed is tiny, but the forest it grows can cover nations. And here's where you are invited to walk with us, not by force, but by choice. The journey we share is like building a great bridge across a chasm. Each plank laid, each nail hammered makes the crossing possible not only for you, but for many who come after. When you like, share and subscribe. It is as if you are laying another plank in that bridge. Your act may feel small, but together it forms a path strong enough to carry thousands across. Support also comes in other forms. For some it is words of encouragement, for others time in prayer, and for some is the offering of resources when you donate. It is not payment, it is planting. Imagine a farmer kneeling over soil, placing one seed into the earth. To the eye, it seems like loss. The seed disappears. Yet with patience, it rises as a harvest far greater than what was placed. That is what your gift becomes. A harvest, not only for this work, but for lives you may never meet. There is beauty in such giving because it mirrors God's own nature. The Creator gave breath, gave light, gave life. To give is to participate in that divine rhythm, and the choice to give must always remain free, never cursed. That freedom is what makes it sacred. Think also of lanterns lit one by one along a dark road alone. One flame reaches only a few feet ahead, but when many choose to light theirs, the entire road glows. Your like is a lantern. Your share is another. Your subscription keeps the flames burning. And when you choose to donate, it is as if you bring fresh oil to keep the lanterns shining long into the night. I once knew of a chosen one who felt they had nothing to offer. They thought their part was too small to matter. Yet one day they shared a word, and it reached someone who was on the edge of giving up. That single act lit a flame that saved a life. Later they realized what they gave was never small. It was eternal. That is the beauty of participation. Nothing offered sincerely is ever wasted. So let your first offensive move be one of courage, both for your own path and for the community around you. Step boldly into what God is calling you to do. And if your heart resonates with these words, then let your actions reflect it in the way you feel led, like share, subscribe, or donate, not because you must, but because it is a privilege to join in building light where darkness thought it could reign. This first move is not the end. It is the opening note in a song that will grow louder, richer, more beautiful with every step you take. The courage you show now will echo into the lives of those who follow. And as you walk forward, heaven will walk with you. Chosen one, betrayal is one of the sharpest blades life can press against your soul. It does not come from strangers, for strangers cannot wound so deeply. It comes from those who once walked beside you, those you trusted with your laughter, your secrets, your dreams. That is why it pierces. The very hand you thought would steady you becomes the one that pushes you away. But as painful as it is, betrayal is never wasted. It is not a detour in your story. It is part of the shaping. Every crown carried by the chosen ones is polished with tears, and betrayal is one of the fires that refines it. The scriptures speak in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verse in, "He who shared my bread has turned against me." Then these words echo across generations. Even the Son of Man experienced betrayal at his own table. If betrayal touched the holiest hands, should it surprise us that it touches ours? Yet notice this. Betrayal did not end the story. It propelled it. What looked like defeat became the very hinge that swung destiny open. There was once a chosen one who placed their trust in a close ally. Together they dreamed, planned, and built. But when the moment of pressure came, the ally shifted, seeking advantage, whispering half-truths to others. The wound cut deep. At first, despair tried to take root. But later, as time unfolded, the chosen one realized something crucial. Betrayal had cleared the stage. Those who could not handle the weight of destiny stepped aside, so the true journey could begin. Without that loss, the elevation ahead would have been sabotaged from within. Think of a tree in autumn. Leaves that once looked vibrant and alive begin to fall. It feels like loss, like emptiness. Yet without that shedding, the tree cannot survive the winter nor prepare for new growth in spring. Betrayal is a kind of autumn. Painful, yes, but necessary for survival and renewal. What falls away may never return, but what remains grows deeper, roots, or picture gold being refined. It is placed in the crucible, and the impurities rise to the surface as dross. Betrayal acts like heat. It reveals what is impure in relationships. It shows who truly walks with you and who only stood beside you for convenience. Once revealed, the truth cannot be ignored. Painful clarity is better than comfortable illusion. Chosen one, you must remember this. Betrayal is not your end, but their exit. It is the moment when God permits certain ties to break because they cannot go where you are going. Some companions are for a season, not for a lifetime. Their departure, though messy, is protection disguised as pain. Do not let bitterness take root. Betrayal tempts you to close your heart, to vow never to trust again. But the very gifts unearthed in silence, the disciplines you've embraced, all prepare you for leadership. And leadership requires an open heart. If you wall yourself off completely, you cut yourself off from the very alliances that will help you in the next chapter. Learn from the pain, but do not let the pain imprison you. I think again of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold for silver, left to rot in places he did not deserve. Yet years later, when famine came, the same brothers stood before him, needing bread. Joseph wept, not with vengeance, but with clarity. What they intended for harm, God had turned for good. That is the final testimony of betrayal. It cannot stop the plan. It only sets the stage for redemption. So let the wound bleed, but do not let it poison you. Let the tears fall, but know they are watering the soil of your future.